Number one, undefeated Ohio State travels to Champaign, Illinois to take on the 17th ranked Illinois Fighting Illini, who, if not for a loss to Indiana, would also be undefeated. They have 5 wins, their sole loss again coming to the Hoosiers 63-10. They have beaten USC. They're coming off of a double-digit road win against rival Purdue. Ohio State, their best win, I would argue, is still over Texas in week 1. Before I continue, liking the video, watching the video all the way through, and commenting your thoughts down below are the best ways to support the channel, as they help push me into the algorithm, help me to receive a larger paycheck that I can use to reinvest in producing elite analysis for you all. Subscribing to the channel, hitting the notification bell, sharing the video around, and supporting us in other ways that you can find out via the description are other awesome ways to support our operation at College Football with Sam. We are becoming the best. We want to be the best. Thank you all for making that possible. 14-7 may not have been their most impressive performance, but it was the best opponent they beat, and they are undefeated. They're number 1 in the power ratings. They're number 1 in the polls. I think they are among the best teams in America, along with just a select few others. They're favored by 14.5 points on the road, so I think that reflects where Ohio State is at in regards to their program, but also the team that they are fielding in 2025. A fun fact, there's actually a rivalry trophy between these two teams, the Buck Trophy. It's a tortoise, a turtle, and I think that it is either wood or bronze. Don't exactly know, but that's not the reason we're talking about this game as much as I think the trophy's kind of cool. It kicks off, this game does, at noon Eastern time on Big Noon Kickoff, aired on Fox. And what I think is most fascinating about this matchup is that both of these teams are top 20 in the Big Ten, but Ohio State is viewed as this elite team, as potentially the favorite to win the national championship, depending on who you ask. If you look at the odds, they are almost the unanimous favorite to win it all, not by this wide margin, but they're slotted at number 1 almost no matter what book you look at. And Illinois is this team that's fighting to just be in the CFP conversation, and I think that they need a win. I think they need a win to be in that college football playoff conversation. I want to really focus on Ohio State here. That's where I want to begin this, talking about the road team first, and that will be a recurring theme in my preview and prediction videos. So the Buckeyes are first in FPI, also second in S&P Plus, and you look at the dominance metrics, the points per play margin, the expected points added margin that they have, their wins, they don't have any losses, the fact that every week it feels like the offense is settling into its identity. Still don't quite have a concrete answer as to what their identity is, but I feel like it's coming into being. And that is, we are going to pick you apart in the passing game. We are going to move Jeremiah Smith around like a chess piece so that your defense will focus on him, and so that our other wide receivers, mostly Carnell Tate, but also, the receiving tight ends, Max Clare or Will Kazmarek, a little bit of Brandon Inniss or Mylan Graham, things can open up for them. And even if you're trying to cover Smith, well, it's not going to work because he's just that good. I feel like that's their identity. And then they use the ground game to try and control the clock and simply keep opponents honest, but that's not where their identity or strength is. That's in the quarterback, the tackles and offensive line and pass protection. It's in their tight ends, not just as blockers, but also as receivers. They're good there too. And their wide receivers as well, who are phenomenal in all aspects of the game. Ohio State is number 1 in the polls. I actually think as of right now, they have the strongest argument to be number 1 just because of how clean and crisp they look. The way they beat Minnesota was very impressive. Now, I don't think Minnesota is a good football team. I never really thought they were a good football team after the first 3 weeks of the season. That loss to California was pretty ugly, and the fact that Rutgers doesn't have a defense and Rutgers nearly held them to under 30 points is not particularly awe-inspiring. But they carved Minnesota apart in just about every way possible. And the cuts that they produced were so clean, they could just, seamlessly, calmly take muscle off the bone. That's what Ohio State is. They're very surgical. They're well coached. They don't beat themselves. And they are a confident team with just enough humility to not really overlook anyone, to take everyone seriously. They're intelligent. They're freakishly athletic, littered with NFL players. There is so much to love about Ohio State. And I think that this team has a really good chance of not just repeating as national champions, but winning the Big Ten. And with how their schedule lines up and with who they are as a team, there's a chance that they could go 16-0. There's a realistic chance of that. I mean, Texas, per the power ratings, and this was the case in the preseason, but it still is the case here, is their best opponent in the regular season. It's Texas. Penn State has fallen off of a cliff. Illinois is better than they were last year, but not a top 10 or even top 15 quality team. They're probably not even a top 20 quality team when you look at the advanced metrics and the power ratings. They don't play Indiana. They don't play Oregon. And Michigan, it's a road game that might at the end of the year even be a tougher challenge than the Texas game. In the advanced analytics, Michigan's actually trending to possibly be a better team than Texas this year, especially if you remove the priors. If you remove the priors, they're already viewed as a better team in the advanced metrics. They're still not solidly top 10, while Ohio State is solidly top 2, if not solidly number 1. They will be favored in all of their remaining regular season games. Now, if they get to Indy, or if they reach the playoff and get outside the first round or two, it's a different discussion at that point, no matter whether you're favored or not. Your goal is just to win. Your goal, especially since you won it last year, is just to compete, and Ohio State will compete. In this game, what I look for is making sure that Ohio State can have the same level of efficiency that they've had against inferior competition. So how you carved up Minnesota, how you carved up Grambling, how to a certain degree, but in a very clunky way, you carved up Ohio. Didn't carve up Texas, but you beat them, and Texas athletically and from a roster standpoint is better than Illinois. If you are a team that is just as good as you are last year, if you want to have the hope of being that type of team that Ohio State was last year, you will go into Champaign and you will beat them by 4 touchdowns. You will cover the spread. You will dominate. From the end of the first quarter at minimum, you will look like the clearly superior team. Every position for Ohio State is at minimum strong when you look at the national average college football team. Now, they do have some weak links, as every team does. This isn't 2001 Miami, and even they probably had some weak links, especially from an NFL draft or NFL talent standpoint. Their quarterback, Ken Dorsey, wasn't as talented as Andre Johnson or Clinton Portis or Jeremy, I think, Shockey or maybe Shocker at tight end, or many of the other first-round picks, Vince Wilfork, that they produced. This team is its strongest offensively at, I would say, quarterback, wide receiver. I love the offensive tackles they have. Offensive line in general, I think, is stronger than the national college football average, especially in pass protection. I would like to see it do better in the ground game, especially since they mostly face light boxes, because if you don't play a light box defense against Ohio State, you're an idiot, because they'll just beat you over the top. So any defense worth a lick is going to play you with a light box. And you always want to run in a light box, especially if you have the talent and reputation that Ohio State does. So I'd like to see more there, but that's mostly nitpicking. I mean, they had that same issue last year and won it all. Michigan the year before did not have NFL receivers. They won it all. Georgia the year prior did not have anywhere close to a first-round NFL quarterback, And it's not like they were insanely deep at wide receiver either, although A.D. Mitchell and Ladd McConkey were really good. Still not even close to who Ohio State had. They won it all. They also had a defense that took a step back from their 2021 selves that also had the same quarterback. You get the point. Unless you are a 1995 Nebraska, 2001 Miami, no one's perfect. And Ohio State's favored here by 14.5 points for a reason. The defense, you got, Caden Curry, Caden McDonald. You have Edric Houston, Taiwan Malone, Will Smith. You have other defensive end, Kenyatta Jackson, Bo Atkinson, Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, Peyton Pierce. At safety, Caleb Downs, obviously, and then you have Jalen McClain, Malik Hartford, Lorenzo Styles, Jermaine Matthews, Davison Igbinosun. There's no real weakness on defense. There might be players that aren't as good as other players in terms of starting lineup, but there are no real weaknesses defensively. I mean, they are so good at playing defense, at making sure that you don't get either the big play, or if you do, that you don't get the big play inside the 20s. They are really good at making sure that you don't get a touchdown. They're the only team that hasn't allowed a rushing touchdown, which is pretty incredible. And then offensively, this team obviously does a really good job at attacking you over the top. And then especially with Bo Jackson, when he's in there at running back, they do a good job of keeping you honest in the ground game. So I'm impressed with this Buckeye team and what they have shown me so far. I think that their strongest area in this matchup is going to be, quite honestly, it's going to be either that passing defense with some of the players they have that could pass rush, Arvell Reese spying Luke Altmaier or coming in pass rush situations when appropriate. I mean, he's a future first-rounder at linebacker. It's either that or it's Ohio State's passing offense against an Illinois secondary that, because of the absence of Xavier Scott, I believe, they're not totally healthy. And they've also had some injuries here and there. And look, the defense for Illinois is very inconsistent. Illinois is an inconsistent team outside of really their passing offense. And even there, they allow plenty of sacks. Their offensive line is not up to standard. It just isn't. The weakest part for Ohio State here will probably be, depending on which Illinois offensive line shows up, it will probably be Illinois' rushing attack and then stubbornly running the ball, and Ohio State and Patricia being willing to give up some yards in between the 20s. Now, it's worked for Ohio State so far, but sometimes when you give up yards in between the 20s, you can't always count on bowing up inside the red zone. I mean, Ohio State mostly could last year, but there were games where they just didn't because no one's perfect. No unit is perfect. So if there is any weak spot or weakness at all, it would be that, I think. For Illinois is a above average, maybe good Power 4 team. That's what Illinois is. I am rooting for them, not like in this game, but rooting for them to be successful because I like the idea of these smaller programs who are punching above their weight class, and Illinois is very much doing that. That's why they beat USC. I mean, USC, when you look at the dominance metrics, is a top 10, possibly top 5 team, certainly top 15 team. Illinois is not that. And Illinois beat them and could have dominated that game had a controversial fumble call not went against them and had their other running back, Khalil Valentine, held onto the football. We all make mistakes. I'm not chastising individual players. I'm just saying they're an admirable team, a good operation. I mean, I was correct in picking that Indiana would blow them out because I think Indiana's in a totally different stratosphere than Illinois is. Indiana is so much closer to Ohio State than Illinois is, for example. However, I think I might be wrong in the overall picture of Illinois this year, where I thought record-wise it was a guarantee they would regress. They've beaten Duke. They have beaten USC. They are 1-0 in one-score games, and they're not really playing in one-score games. And when they're not playing in one-score games, outside of when they played Indiana, they're winning set games. They could very easily go 9-3, 10-2. If they win this game, 11-1 is not out of the picture. Even though power ratings wise, 11-1, according to the computers, is probably impossible. But this is a good team where they don't just have Luke Altmaier on offense, although he's a really good player, but Khalil Valentine and Caden Fagan, I think, is a respectable running back duo. You got Hank Beatty, Justin Bowick, and some other players at wide receiver. Bowick is my favorite of all of their wide receivers. I really am a huge fan of Justin Bowick. I think that he has this knack of getting open and making key plays when Illinois needs a key play, and him and Altmaier have a special connection there. You got the tight end Tanner Arkin. Defensively, I think that Illinois does have some issues for sure, but I've been impressed with their defensive front. A huge part of the reason why they were able to beat USC is that like Kurt Neal, James Thompson, Gabiakis, those defensive linemen or outside linebackers who could functionally play as defensive ends really ate up USC's, albeit injured, but still a USC offensive line and running back group that were averaging 7 yards per carry and probably still are even after that game. It's a very impressive effort that I saw in that matchup by an Illinois defensive front that has Dylan Rosiek, Gabiakis, Kurt Neal, James Thompson. I love what they have on the defensive line. And you also got to remember and pay attention to a Gentle Hunt, Tamiwa Durogiae, hopefully that's how you say his name, Alec Bryant, Malachi Hood. They have a really good defensive front, and I thought the secondary was going to be their strength entering this year. I think there's a chance that it could be that Illinois defensive front that is indeed a strength for them. Luke Altmaier and his receivers are the strength of the offense. I like to look at how their top 20 in yards per dropback, averaging about 8.8 yards per dropback, and that factors in Altmaier getting sacked 19 times, despite a lack of pass protection, a critical lack of pass protection. Their passing offense is still among one of the nation's better passing offenses. They have good receivers, good tight end, and I would say a great college quarterback. Luke Altmaier right now, I think, is sixth in QBR. He has yet to throw an interception. And, I mean, he is throwing lasers. He's making the right reads. He's rarely throwing the ball, if ever, in harm's way. And that's without a perfect supporting cast. So, for example, he does not have Julian Sayin supporting cast. Julian Sayin might have the best supporting cast in all of college football. Doesn't take any credit away from him, but when you have Jeremiah Smith and you have Carnell Tate and no other wide receiver is close to even Tate, let alone Smith, there's no arguing that Julian Sayin's job is made much easier than, say, Luke Altmaier's, and I don't think anyone would debate against that. I mean, Altmaier does not have the pass protection. He does not have the receivers, the tight ends. I don't know if anyone in that Illinois running back room is even as talented as Bo Jackson is, for example. These teams are just operating on entirely different levels. Illinois, for example, they average negative 0.07 expected points added per rush attempt. That's outside the top 100. It is a rushing offense that really only looked effective against USC's defensive front. Well, USC is the size that Ohio State has on the defensive front, and I think Eric Gentry is a future NFL linebacker, much like Arvell Reese. They do not have the depth, and they do not have the DBs that can, tackle with perfect efficiency and take elite angles. They don't have that. So I have a hard time seeing Illinois have a lot of success on the ground. I think their path to victory here is they win the turnover battle. They're plus 1.2 in terms of turnover margin per game. They average plus 1.2 in turnover margin per game. A lot of that has to do with Altmaier not turning it over, and Caleb Patterson leads the team with 2 fumbles recovered this college football season so far, and I imagine that he will probably have many more fumble recoveries coming his way. because Illinois is just, they're that good. They've copied Iowa, Bret Bielema's alma mater, in that way of successfully and sustainably replicating turnovers. They have done that. And that's pretty incredible if you ask me. One more thing I want to touch on before we get to my prediction here. There's one more thing I want to touch on. I do think that Ohio State is the better team here, and I think they have a lot of advantages. They hold a lot more valuable cards in their hand than Illinois does. But I think what Illinois can do is, if you really trust your DBs, or you really trust your defensive front enough to maybe lightly stack the box and trust the seniority of your linebackers to know when Sayin's pulling the football and not handing it off, to not get bit by play action. Ohio State plays off of motion, moving around Jeremiah Smith, and off of the potential burst of their running back room and the downfield blocking of their tight ends and their offensive line. They play off of that very well with play action. If you can be disciplined and slow down that rushing attack, which is kind of middle of the road when you look at expected points added and only above average in yards per carry, if you can stop Ohio State's rushing attack with a light box and force Julian Sayin to beat you, which he has with every other team, maybe, just maybe, with it being a road game and you probably having the best defense that Ohio State has played in terms of what a Big Ten defense is since Texas, maybe you can force a turnover here or a turnover there. And offensively, you pair that with a quarterback who has shown enough moxie and enough poise and strength and talent to maybe he can fit it into tight windows all day. That is your path to pulling off the upset, because Ohio State is just the better overall team. They have the better overall staff. I don't think they're overlooking Illinois. They're better defensively everywhere. I would argue even they're better offensively everywhere than Illinois is. And for that very reason, I am picking Ohio State to win, and not just win, but I also think they'll cover that 14.5 line there. It is a noon game. The environment will probably still be as ruckus as it could possibly be given the, stadium restrictions. Maybe there will be a lot of Ohio State fans there. I mean, I don't know, but regardless of that, I don't think that Ohio State's going to be fazed by this team or this environment. I think they're going to win. I think they're one of the best teams in football. Illinois is simply an above-average good team, and it's not like they have any matchup edge to exploit here. For example, if Illinois was Iowa, for example, I think Iowa would match up much better with Ohio State than Illinois does, because they're stronger in the trenches, their defense is overall better, and it's easier to run the ball on Ohio State than pass the ball on them. You'd rather be a team that struggles to pass but is really good at running the ball and play Ohio State that way than be a more balanced offense but your strength leans passing. Ohio State's ability to QB spy, their ability to cover, to mix up coverages, their ability to even get to the quarterback is much stronger because they're the best in that category, I believe. It is stronger than their ability to just straight up line up against you if you have a good O-line and push you over and get infinite TFLs. They're good in that area too, just not as good as they are at stopping the pass and playing lockdown defense in the air attack. Illinois is not built that way. So, yeah, it's a bad matchup. It's a matchup that favors Ohio State. That's why I'm picking them to win and cover. Looking at the Big Ten standings here, Illinois does have a chance to really cement themselves as being a team that could maybe flirt with Indy or definitely reach the playoffs if they win. For Ohio State here, you're sitting at the top of the conference with Oregon, Indiana. Michigan's not undefeated, but they are in conference play. So those are the teams right now that are tied for first in Big Ten standings. Depending on how Indiana, Oregon does, and Michigan, USC, you have a chance to really pull away, start pulling away from the rest of the pack. And this might be their toughest game. I think Penn State will be a tougher test than Illinois, but maybe not. Penn State's played rather poorly. This will probably be their toughest test right up until that Michigan game if Penn State continues to play the way that they have been playing. I think Ohio State certainly scores in the 30s, if not 40s. Maybe they want to send a message and they score in the 50s. I don't think Illinois will be held to single digits, but I don't think they're going to score more than 20 here. We'll see ultimately what happens. That's why we play the games. That's why God has given us the opportunity to watch these games and for the players to play them. But I think Ohio State wins this game comfortably. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure, if you haven't already, to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment your analysis and thoughts down below so I can reciprocate my thoughts with you in the comment section, and check out anything on these end screens that are up here. Whether it's a recommended video or playlists for teams that I'm talking about in a preview, prediction, or a reaction, make sure to hit the notification bell on those, scroll through them, and watch any suggested videos if you are interested. Thank you for helping college football with Sam become the best and the biggest college football brand and channel on YouTube and other social media platforms. We will reach that one day because of your support.